Y'all know what it is.
So we've talked a lot about, personal vehicles and semi-trucks. What are some other applications that we haven't discussed? The shipping is a huge one. You brought that up a little bit as far as the big shipping containers are running off of diesel. It's very bad for the environment. I've seen some schematics of a tanker that's set up with a fuel cell solution that looks very interesting. And I don't know if they've already got them in place or not, or if it's still tech they're working on. But you got the shipping industry. What about homes? Providing electricity for your home or commercial products?
That's an interesting one. So hydrogen for buildings is still a little bit further off in my opinion. So I think there's going to be definite applications in marine in certain areas, especially areas where you were limited by the amount of, kind of pollution you're allowed. I think I mentioned trains before. Definitely applications in trains in areas which are hard to electrify, so substitution of diesel and hydrogen gen sets. So if you look at building sites, they have these diesel generator sets kicking out smog. It's not pleasant, it's inefficient, it's loud. With cheap fuel cells, you can just replace that with hydrogen, and that is a huge improvement. I know there's a lot of kind of businesses looking at that area now. For homes, yes, hydrogen potentially for combined heat and power. So you could have a small fuel cell in your house, and you use that to generate heat and power. There are already fuel cells for homes that run off natural gas. So it's not too far of a stretch to look at hydrogen fuel cells for homes. But the issue is then, how are you getting your hydrogen to your house? So you want it to come through your natural gas network. In the UK, there is a really interesting project at Keele University where they have a separate natural gas grid than the surrounding area. So they converted that to run on hydrogen and use that to be used in the campus buildings, which is interesting. And over here, we're also looking at doing, first of all, kind of a hydrogen village, then a hydrogen town by 2030.
I know that Japan is actually working really hard to get their whole infrastructure set up on hydrogen as well.
Yeah. So they wanted to do the Hydrogen Olympics in 2020, and there's a huge amount of investment gone on there behind the scenes. And then essentially they wanted to kind of show the world of, look, Japan is the leader in hydrogen, and in many ways they absolutely are. So it's been a real shame we weren't able to have that Olympics and these companies that have been involved in that technology to advertise it by the Olympics. But I'm hoping that in 2021 the Olympics do happen, and we do see a lot of the potential in Japan of hydrogen. So they're really looking across the whole chain. So hydrogen in buildings, in mobility, for energy storage. It's really all there.
I wondered. Oh, go ahead, man.
Sorry. Does temperature play a factor in the storage and use of hydrogen? I recently went up to Nome, Alaska to do some work, and it gets really cold there in the winter. And their only source of heat, or the major source of heat, is burning diesel. That's how they heat their homes. And the way I'm thinking is, if a hydrogen solution out there, a community like Nome could drop the diesel heaters and be able to power their homes and heat their homes with hydrogen. But if it's negative 30 degrees out there, is that a problem with a hydrogen solution?
I mean, the hydrogen gas itself won't notice. Until it's minus 200 and something, it doesn't turn to liquid, and then you can still use it. You probably want a little warm up for your hydrogen fuel cell, but the hydrogen fuel cells generate heat anyway. So if you have a hydrogen system over there, the temperature of your hydrogen doesn't make any difference. Your fuel cell will be kicking out enough excess heat that you can use that for warming your buildings as well as producing power. And it's not like diesel; it won't turn to slush and cause a problem, and it won't separate out. It's not where if you get diesel's a combination of different molecules, you can get separation and things. So no, heat's not really an issue. And in fact, hydrogen has some advantages. So again, if you look at vehicles, if you're driving up in Alaska in your Tesla, which are obviously, I like Teslas, great cars, but you want to heat your car, you switch on your heater and your battery really quickly. Because you're using electricity, but your fuel cell, because it's not 100% efficient, does kick out some heat anyway. So you can then use that heat to heat your vehicle. So you're not having to use extra hydrogen to generate that heat. Now, if you live in a totally temperate climate, you don't get that benefit. But if you live in Norway or Alaska or Canada, then there are real advantages to that.
Ryan, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask. So we've spent a lot of time talking about transportation and things like that, but I wonder if we could talk a little bit about other emerging markets. I think you mentioned in our little pre-show discussion the use of hydrogen in agriculture. And I wonder if you'd maybe talk about that. And I wonder if there's maybe some increased demand in those spaces. I don't know if it's related or not, but I've seen a lot of recent like fertilizer companies and things like this that are trying to get into really hyper clean, hyper green kinds of fertilizer solutions and things like that for, largely to support the cannabis industry here in the States, but, also just to sort of, transition those products into more sustainable and greener goods. I wonder if you could talk about the role of hydrogen in those types of markets.
That's interesting. Well, that's an emerging market. So for years, people have talked about shipping hydrogen around in large scale and generally talks about doing liquid hydrogen. But a lot of attention has now moved to shipping ammonia. So producing hydrogen, converting it to ammonia, and then shipping that around. Then you can either extract the hydrogen or you can use the ammonia either as a fuel itself or in other industry. So ammonia is usually most produced chemical worldwide, we'll say. Most of it going into fertilizer. So suddenly we have this situation where we're producing a lot of green hydrogen, ideally very cheaply. And the ammonia industry can look at this and say, wait, if we use this green hydrogen, we don't really have to change the rest of our process. And yes, there are ways to do that, but you can stick with the same process. But our ammonia is greener. And then the fertilizer industry, which we sell that into, which has a very bad reputation for emissions, it helps them offset some of their emissions by using green ammonia. So it's part of the value chain. If you green your hydrogen, you green your input into ammonia, you green your fertilizer. So, you mentioned the cannabis industry. I think I read an article about some producers there saying that they're using, just renewable electricity for the lighting and things. Well, if you look at from the other end, if they're using renewable electricity to produce the hydrogen, to produce the fertilizer, then your emissions overall start to come down to zero. And in some sectors of the community, people are very attracted to these environmentally conscious businesses.